man. Good. How about yourself?
Uh, Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. You guys had a crazy few weeks there.
It was a pretty wild start to the year, man.
Wow. That was so frustrating, I can imagine.
That's a good way to put it. It was scary for a couple of weeks, but you know, man, we learned a ton. We're better off for it ultimately.
Yeah.
So you have to find the good that comes out of that stuff. But
yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, what else can you do, right? I mean, some assholes out there trying to hold people hostage is just that blows my mind that there's people out there that's what they do. You know, I don't know. There just seems like so much better ways to live your life.
Well, I agree. I mean, we don't know where they were. We're pretty well. The FBI and the folks that helped us negotiate, I think Eastern Europe, but you really don't know. I mean, we had to pay a Bitcoin ransom payment, so basically can't trace that stuff. So we'll probably never know, you know, where they were or whatever. But yeah, it's big business now, unfortunately. Super big business. It's getting worse. But you know, you've got foreign countries that are sort of turning a blind eye to that stuff, and a lot of money being sent overseas to pay those things. So
it's sad.
Yeah, but you know, man, we're in a good place. The business is great. We're so fortunate that, you know, 95% of our customers just, you know, thankfully we're able to work around it and stuck with us, which has just been, I mean, such a blessing. And I mean, we're so incredibly thankful for that. So
yeah, no joke. I can imagine. Cause I mean, we definitely had people knocking at our door. Like I don't even know how I guess they knew that somehow or another they knew that we were you know, clients of yours, and they did, you know, we had companies reaching out. We were like, no, we're good, you know, we're not. I think the beauty of your platform for us anyways has been the simplicity of it. You're not trying to be who you're not. So many of these other scheduling apps are like, oh yeah, and we do social media too. Oh yeah, and we also do inventory processing. We're like, we just want to write a schedule, man. Like, we just want to keep it simple, and that's the beauty. And then the other way around, like, we've been trying to find a good inventory processing company for years, and we have not had any luck with that because they all want to dabble in all this other stuff, and it just makes their platform really just overbearing. I mean, you look at it and you're like, God, what button do I press? Where do I begin? What screen am I looking at right now? Because they just try to do too much stuff. I think like Hot Schedules is probably a prime example of that. I'm sure they're one of your biggest competitors. They're probably one of the biggest market shareholders. And I did not care for them at all. I used them years and years ago when I was with Carrabba's 15 years ago or so, and wasn't a fan then and not a fan now. So we like what we use, and we were willing to stick it out. I knew that it would be fixed eventually. So we just held on. I think we only wrote maybe one schedule without using Schedulefly, because how many days was it down for? Like 6 or 8 days or something like that?
Well, we went down about like 6 a.m. ish on New Year's Day, and then about 5 days later we got the decryption key and decrypted everything. But it took us another 5 days. I think it was like 10 and a half days or 10 days because we moved from, you know, what we believed had been a very secure, and I mean, it was a very secure environment, but you know, they found a way. So we've moved to like Fort Knox.
Right. Yeah.
Like we have like the same tools and security that like a large bank would have now.
Sure. It's sad that you have to do that. It really is. It's disappointing, and humanity disappoints me when I hear about things like that. But it is what it is. So.
Well, you know, we learned a lot, man. Thank you for those nice comments. I mean, we did learn a ton about, you know, just about our business, but also honestly about how incredibly thankful we are, how loyal so many of our customers are. And, you know, some just said, you know, hey, and they did. I mean, gosh, it was amazing how many people told me that they've had all these competitors calling on them. And some said, you know, look, we're going to move on or whatever. And maybe some will come back. Who knows? I don't know. But
it will.
it was such, well, it was such a, yeah, it was just such a minority though. I mean, so what was amazing to us is we kind of look at like, gosh, you know, this is great because the absolute overwhelming majority of our customers stuck through it. And I think like, well, gosh, if that didn't cause them to go, like, what is, right? So,
right. Well, I think the key to it, and we're learning this, like, as we're growing and expanding ourselves, is that it was very genuine. Like when you guys came on, you were very transparent about what was going on, and you were making these videos that just were very genuine. You could tell that you guys really cared and really were trying to get it fixed, and how it was just as devastating to you as it was to everybody else. And I think as business owners, I don't remember what podcast I was listening to. I think it was a Lex Friedman podcast recently, and he was talking to this guy who's like done everything in his life. He owns this major production company, and he played in a band that opened for the Rolling Stones, and he's got like an airline company and like all this stuff. This guy's like a multi-billionaire, right? And he's like, people don't want to work with companies, they want to work with people, right? And so at some point in time, you become a company like Nike, right? Like I have no idea anybody is at Nike, right? Because they're not in their commercials or anything like that. But that takes a long time before you get to that point. In the beginning, for years and years, and you know, hundreds of thousands of people that you work with, everything, you're still a person. You know, it's a long time. I can imagine decades before Schedule Fly will be. I don't know who Will is. Who's Will? I just know Schedule Fly. What are you talking about, Will? Right. So I think that makes a huge difference. And you said people want to work with people that are like-minded and that they feel are sincere and stuff like that. And I think especially this day and age where there's not a lot of transparency and a lot of people can be kind of ugly about stuff, and so it makes a big deal. It's important to us.
Well, as long as we're here, man, we've had 5 of us for 15 years now, and
right.
As long as we're running this thing, that's it.
Right.
It's the same 5. You know, I appreciate you saying that. It was a weird thing because there's no roadmap for this stuff, or playbook or whatever you want. I mean, like we're just, but you know, my stepmom, I think after the first one, I was pretty distraught in the first one. I mean, I couldn't hide it. And my stepmom said, "You look like you're in a terrorist video, Will." And I was like, well, I kind of feel like I am, you know, like you're being held hostage or something like that. But
well, you were. I mean, you guys were being held hostage. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? And I mean, that's what sucks. I mean, it's crazy.
It was nuts, man. But thank you, man. And it's been a while since we've talked. Tell me how things are going down in Charleston or outside of Charleston.
It's been crazy. I think the last time that we talked, you know, it was just coming out of the pandemic. It was early 2020, maybe mid 2020, somewhere around there is my guess.
Yeah.
And we were trying to just figure things out at that time. You know, things were going well. We were having success despite everything that was happening. We had the benefit of having a big outdoor space, which was really helpful. We had a huge loyal customer following, which obviously is really helpful. So even when we were just doing to-go orders only, we were doing way more than we expected that we were going to do. So we were able to really hold on to the majority of our staff. I think we lost 2 employees. We laid off our entire staff in the beginning, and then we brought everybody back right away, which was nice. I think within a month we had our full staff working again, but we only, I think, lost 2 people that just found other jobs. Really, one moved to California, which is where he's originally from, and then another one just found a job doing something else. He didn't want to live off of unemployment, and I don't blame him. But since then, we were approached with a national company that was interested in franchising our brand. And we said, no, that's not something that we're interested in. It's not something that works for us. And the more I learned about and understood the concept behind franchising, the more I started to really fall in love with the idea. And for me, what it is, franchising means a lot of different things to a lot of people. And I think in a lot of ways, for some people, it's a money grab because, you know, they feel like they can grow really fast and not have to put as much investment into what they're doing. For us, it couldn't be more opposite. We actually told our sales team we want to grow really slow. because we want to really invest in the entrepreneurs that we're working with. And that's what excited me about it, is that I'm taking a business model that works, that has years of experience. We've gotten out all the kinks. We've done all the things that didn't work, and we've done all the things that do work. And now we're able to take that and give it to somebody and say, hey, this is how you do it. And so we're working with some really fantastic franchisees that are super excited about the brand. They know us well, and I couldn't be more honored to have somebody say, oh my gosh, I love what you do so much that I'm willing to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what you do as well. And that is mind blowing to me. I didn't know if we'd ever even sell one, to be honest with you. I was kind of like shot in the dark if we would, but it has been really successful so far, and we're continuing to grow, and we've got some really great people behind us, a great sales team behind us, and a really great, we've built the structure here in developing a really big management team to help do the grand openings and go do all the training that we need to do to make sure these people are successful. And so it's been a big process. It took us about 6 months to get it all done, to be ready to roll, and all the legal stuff that goes with it too. It's very, it's really controlled by the government, and it should be. It's one of those things that you don't want people out there just saying, hey, buy my business, give me some money, and then it's a failure. So there's a lot of systems that are in place for legal reasons, which is great. You become almost publicly traded company in a lot of ways, especially if you want to do business with the SBA. You have to be really transparent with them, which I enjoy because I'm a very transparent person. So it didn't bother me at all to say, yeah, here's our books, here's what we do. We're not trying to hide anything. So it's been great. So as a matter of fact, I have a meeting with a franchisee as soon as we wrap up here at about 2:15. So whenever we're done, I'm going right into another meeting.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I noticed in your, I think it's your email signature. Is that where I saw it has that?
Probably
now?
So.
Wait a minute now. That's something that's changed. Well, first of all, congrats. That's super exciting. And I can tell watching you and listening to you, that's a really exciting thing for you and your team and a big deal for you. And so congrats on that.
Thank you.
So let's dive into that. I mean, so you got this worked out, and so now you're going to have franchisees. Is there a geographic area that you'll expand to, or like how does it all work, and how many people do you have signed up so far?
Sure. Yeah. So we want to stay focused on the Southeast to start with, so that we have easy proximity to be able to get to help people and to train and hopefully some brand recognition and stuff like that as well in the Southeast. And I'll give you a great example of that, is that our first franchisee is in Greenville, South Carolina. It's about 3.5 hours from here. Yeah. And I've been there a couple of times to like look at their location and meet with the architect and stuff. And literally all the guys in their firm had eaten with us before. And, I go work out of the gym with our franchisee. We go do CrossFit together, and like half the guys at the gym had been to eat with us before, because we're their beach community for them. We're on the coast and they're in the mountains. So it's great. So we have a lot of people that already know our brand and love our brand. And so we should have a lot of success there. It's gonna be really great. And we've got a phenomenal group of entrepreneurs there, a group of 4 guys who are best friends. A couple of them are related, brother-in-laws, and they've been in business with each other for years and years. They have multiple different businesses that they already own, and they're going to have a lot of success with us. It's been really fun. And so we've got that location. And then we're working on another one here in Charleston and Mount Pleasant, which is a suburb of Charleston. I don't know how familiar you are with that area, but that's who I'm meeting with right after this. We've got a location we just put a letter of intent on. So we should be hopefully open within the next, I would say, 8 months approximately in that location. And then we've got 3 other people in the works in Texas. We've got 3 really promising. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leads, but you're asking somebody to invest anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million with you. So it's a lot of money, and so it's a big investment. And so you might get hundreds and hundreds of leads, and they might result in 1 or 2 sales, and that's okay. I mean, we want the right fit. We want the right people that we're going to work with. And so like the guy in Mount Pleasant lives here on James Island, was a regular of ours, loves the brand, knew the brand well, and And so he's excited about it. And then we've got a guy in Dallas that we just did what we call a discovery day with, where they come to the restaurant if they've never been here before, and he had not been here before. So we do a tour and we take them around and show them everything, and they learn the brand and they eat with us and they get to meet the management team and the trainers and all that stuff. And so got a guy in Dallas we're working with, a guy in Houston, and a guy in Austin, Texas as well. So we've got three really strong leads in Texas too. So
how did who vets these? Like the lead comes in, does it come into the franchise company, or like how do you and them work together?
Yeah, so we have a sales team essentially that we work with. It is called the Franchise Matchmakers is the name of the company that we work with. They're commission-based company, so we work with them directly, and they essentially, the guy that's done it has been doing this for years and years. He's sold hundreds and hundreds of franchises, and if not thousands. And then that's who owns the company. His name is Lex, and he's the one who sought us out. Not him individually, but one of his employees. He has a couple of employees that are tasked each year with finding new franchises. And they came across our brand on social media and liked our branding. And then when we got to talk, they found out my corporate training background and, opening 13 restaurants in my career and all that kind of stuff. They were like, oh, really? Let's talk a little more. So that's what kind of led to it. And I'll go back to saying the thing that was really different, and I think that he'll say too, I know he'll say, because he says it all the time, is he's never worked with a franchisee that wanted to grow slow, or a franchisor, I guess I should say, that want to grow slow. Most franchisors get into it because they see the ability to grow a lot faster than they could on their own. And I couldn't be more different from that, because we wouldn't be really successful if we did that. We might have some success, if we did that. But for me, the success is in the training, is in the getting these guys and women up to speed on where we need to be and how we need to do it. And this is the restaurant business is not easy, right? It's a big beast, and it takes a lot of effort to do it. And so it's really important that we put a lot of effort into making sure these people are really successful. And so they basically, most of our leads come in. We have 3 different formats that we use to generate leads, but 90-something%, probably 95% of them come in through social media, particularly through Facebook. So we market in these different markets. We have like a really great video that comes across like as an ad on your Facebook page, and just kind of it's a branded video that is just our brand, and then at the end of it says franchise with us, and then there's a tag at the bottom that says click here to learn more, and you click that and you fill out a lead form, and then that information then goes to my sales rep, and then he filters those leads. Typically, they say in the industry that it takes about 100 leads to close one, but we're different because we are what's considered an emerging brand, where like we don't have any like franchisees open yet, right? So we don't have any history to be able to show people to say, hey, these are successful. We know that they will be, but until then, it's a hard sale. So people might like our brand a lot, but then they're like, well, yeah, but you don't have any locations open yet that are franchisees. So once we do that, once we get locations open and they have success, we're required to show their success, or if they're not successful. And so, once we get those open and rolling, and then we have some it's called a franchise disclosure document, and it's a disclosing all of your information about your franchise. Once that gets updated with these franchises open on it and they're successful, that the doors will open up a lot more at that point in time, because you have more people that'll be interested because there's data to show.
So if you've got somebody that's interested and they're in a good location geographically, and they've got the ability to make the financial commitment, what else is what are you guys looking for? What are the things that they need to, that you need to check off, if you will, to make sure you feel confident that they'll be able to pull it off? Because clearly you're doing it. I mean, I can relate to the way you're doing it. Like, you care very much about your brand. And so you're not going to just franchise to make money. You're franchising to grow the success you've had and to reach more people, but to do it successfully, which means I bet you'll probably get most, if not all, these right. But that means getting people that really buy into that at the same level you do, which I've got to imagine is not easy to pick out. And
yeah, so how do you vet those people? Right? It's a great question. I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it. I mean, we have turned down people so far. I mean, there's been people that have been interested and passed the financial background check and all that kind of stuff, and we're able to do it, but just weren't the right fit. I wish I had a great answer for that. I am a big, it's kind of like interviewing like a general manager, but this is on a next level, right?
Right.
I'm a big believer in your gut. I mean, we want to really I tell my management team here all the time, my gut has always been right. Every single time I've gone against it and been like, well, I like this person, but something's not quite right. But I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go for it anyways. It's burned me every time. So I'm definitely a believer in whatever that gut, whatever that is. I don't know, I know people say it's another, you've got a second brain down there, and there must be something that's going on, because it definitely works. So I'm a big believer in that. And that's been a couple of franchisees that haven't worked for us. Something wasn't right, that didn't feel right with them. But, it's got to be a cultural thing. I mean, they got to be guys like me and you that have, transparency. And you can see that in people usually pretty quickly when you sit down and talk with people, whether they're like real or they're just kind of putting on a front. I am who I am. I don't try to fake it or anything like that. And I try to be a good person. I try to give back to the community and stuff like that. We talk a lot about that stuff in the interview process of like, hey, do you do any volunteer work? Like, do you coach a kids, basketball team? Do you work at a, I don't know, a SBA or SPCA or something? Or, I mean, what do you do to be involved in your community? And then, what's your background like? The interesting thing is that how many restaurateurs do you know that have that kind of money to invest? It's pretty rare, right? So ideally, that would be the perfect candidate, would be the guy who's like, oh, I've been a general manager for 10 years. I've got all this experience. I've opened these restaurants. I've worked at this place. This is my resume. It's amazing. But then that guy's like, I don't have the money to invest, most likely. He is making a good living, but not the kind of money to like open up his own place. And then a lot of times, why haven't you opened up your own place? If you're a GM and you've been a GM for years and years, why haven't you gone to that next level? So for us, we're getting a lot more investor type people that are involved in the business, but they're not daily operations guys, if that makes sense. So what we're doing is we're putting GMs in place for them. We're helping them to hire the person that's going to be, who's running the business, right? The guy who's going to be there daily, helping to run the show. We're putting in a kitchen manager. We're putting in a bar manager. Those are our three main positions. We obviously have, depending on the volume, front of the house managers that, are assistant GMs and such. Here, we even have an event coordinator in our location because we're really high volume. We do a lot of events. And so you may need that in some of those locations, more depth, but we focus on getting in a really good GM candidate because as you know, it kind of goes from the top down. So if we don't get a good person in place, a really good leader in place, and really that starts with the franchisee. I mean, ultimately, they've got to be a great person. They've got to be able to, help us with that process of finding a good GM too, because we can't really force that issue either. Because if we see a GM and they're fantastic, but they don't see eye to eye with the franchisee, that's not going to make sense either. So we were really lucky in our location in our Greenville. It's actually Malden is the name of the town. It's a suburb of Greenville, South Carolina, where they had somebody that they knew already. We did do a couple different interviews with a couple different people, but they had this one person that they kind of had in mind, and she blew our socks off. She was fantastic. Her name's Rachel, and right away we knew she was going to be a good fit. She's opened a bunch of restaurants. She worked for a company that did what we're doing, where they went from being a local restaurant up there called Tipsy Tacos, and they became
are you familiar with them? Yeah, in fact, there's one not, I've eaten at one, 15 minutes from my house.
Sure.
Had never
Yeah.
heard of
So
it.
she was with them when they just had a couple of locations in the Greenville area, and she helped them to become a franchise as well. So she's familiar with that process.
Very cool.
So yeah, she's great. So we actually do a Zoom call with her every morning at like 10 a.m. every Monday morning at 10 a.m. and just kind of go over how things are coming along with the opening and stuff. But having that key person is, night and day difference if, in the success of the business. So a lot of the people we're getting are kind of the investor type people that want to be involved, though. They're not hands off necessarily, but they're not enough experience in the restaurant business. For instance, we had a guy that we were interviewed recently that was going to run the daily operations. And I told him, I said, I would completely advise against that. I was like, your experience is waiting tables in college and you're 50 years old now. So I was like, I don't think that's going to be your best bet. And here's why. They gave all the reasons. And the biggest thing I think that they are scared of is that a lot of times they're like, well, if I'm paying a general manager, that's less money than I'm going to make. And I said, well, that's a very short-term view of it, though. Like, yes, maybe so in the very beginning, but I remember when I stepped out of daily operations and put a GM in place, and we grew the business by, I think we went from 1.9 million to 2.3 million in sales the next year. So I grew the business by $400,000 by me being able to focus more on operations of the business, than like being in the business daily. So that 30,000 feet up view.
Yeah. Well, that's a 20-something% growth in a year.
Yeah. It's huge. Huge.
Okay. So, well, that was, that's interesting, because I was wondering that when you mentioned that you've got, folks that are not necessarily going to be involved. My initial thought was, could that be a problem if, they're not, then, because you were involved, you built this thing, you did it yourself.
Absolutely.
You know everything about every job in that restaurant and how it works, and therefore you can decision it well. But having the right GM that has that experience is better than having somebody in there that doesn't, but that just.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think these guys are all going to be involved, right? They're not like completely hands off, like, oh, here's my money, take it, and then run with it. That's not the candidate we're looking for either. It's that balance between the two. And so, I think it is really important to us to have the guy that knows that knows where he's not, the things he's not good at, understands those, and then, but still is involved and still helps grow the business. A great example is our guy in Mount Pleasant too. He's in sales. I mean, that's what he's done, and he's really great at it. And we've had these really fantastic conversations about how do you build, how do you grow a business? I'm a big top line guy. I'm a big, like, let's grow sales and that'll solve all the rest of your issues. Because in the restaurant industry, running $1 million restaurant compared to running a $3 or $4 million restaurant those $3 or $4 million restaurants are a lot easier to run, because they're a lot easier. They kind of fix themselves with a lot of the sales. So he's great at looking at that and looking at that viewpoint of it, which is fantastic. So
yeah. Okay. This is so cool, man. When does the Greenville location open?
Presumably we're hoping sometime like early summer, but it's really, with supply chain and everything like that right now, it's kind of all over the map. That's the goal. They're converting an old Rite Aid building into, it's 3 parts. So one part of it, the main section of it, the biggest part is going to be a Bohemian Bowl. And then there's going to be a bagel shop on the other end, and in the middle, some office spaces. And it's a developer in the Greenville market that has made some really, really beautiful locations, taken some old buildings and renovated them and made them into gorgeous spots. One of them is a spot that's like it's like an eatery where you walk in and then there's a bunch of little restaurants inside. There's like a coffee shop and like a taco place and stuff, and then there's open communal tables that everybody sits at, right, which I think is a big thing now in a lot of cities. We have one here in Charleston as well. and it's gorgeous. They did a great job with it, so we're excited about working with them. They should have the property turned over to us sometime this month. And when they turn the property over to us, it's, you know, gangbusters from there. We'll start moving in the right direction with everything and doing the build out. And it's going to be a really neat location for us because, you know, they're going to do a second story. You know, the Rite Aid's got this big, huge open ceiling. It's like a 2-story building, but it's just open. And so they're taking that open space and they're building, like, over top of the kitchen essentially is going to be another bar, another seating area, and it'll go out into like a kind of like a rooftop deck type area as well. So it's gonna be a really neat spot. It's got a lot of really neat design elements to it that are really fun. That's another thing with our brand that I think is different, is that we don't want to be cookie cutter. We don't want to go in and so you can't open a bunch of them because we can't say, here's a plan, chink, go. Like, it's where every location is gonna be unique. And we're working with, we have designers and we have architects and all that kind of stuff, but we work with a franchisee too to kind of bring in an element of what's local and what works for that particular location. You know, we're the location that we're building in Greenville is an old Rite Aid, and then the location in Mount Pleasant that we just put a letter of intent on is an old Carrabba's. So it's a completely different game. It's an existing restaurant, but you don't want it to look like a Carrabba's, right? So you got to go in and you got to revamp the whole thing and make it look like it's a Bohemian Bowl. So
so I've been to Bohemian Bowl and I've known you for a while, and I love what y'all are doing. Tell people that are listening just a quick summary about your business.
Yeah, so it's you know, burgers and beer and bourbon is what we hang our hat on. But you know, I always say it's bar food done well, but I think my franchisee sales team would say it's bar food done great. Because, you know, I underestimate the quality of our food sometimes. I know how much I love it. And when we started this process, I was like, really, like I said, I was shocked that anybody would want to even buy one of these. But it is really because our food is really great. It's, you know, we grind all of our own meat in house. Our sauces and everything are made here from scratch. You know, we're sourcing some local veggies when we can and when the timing's right. The craft beer, we have 32 draft lines with all craft beer. You're not going to find any local domestic stuff on there, so no Budweisers or Millers or anything. We do carry those in the bottles and cans for those that like that kind of stuff, and that's not a problem at all. We want to kind of we have stuff for everybody here, which is what's really cool. We have an amazing cocktail program, really neat, great bourbon program. We have about 80 different bourbons and whiskeys. We travel to Kentucky about every 3 months. We do single barrel programs from Kentucky where we pick out single barrels from different distilleries that are branded just for us. We have everything from like fish and chips to Reuben's to obviously all of our burgers. So really good classic pub food that you're going to find in a lot of restaurants, but done really well. Like, we're making our own corned beef here in house, right? So, I mean, it's on another level as far as the food experience is concerned. And then it's in an environment that's just really warm and welcoming. So it's very eclectic. Every location is going to look a little different. You know, big beer murals on the wall and big outdoor spaces. All of them are going to have outdoor spaces. Here we've got a 6,000 square foot beer garden. I don't think we're going to find that in every location. It's pretty rare to have that big of a space.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so it's required. They have certain requirements they have to abide by size wise, and they're required to have a minimum of 1,000 square feet, which is still pretty good size outdoor space. And then, yeah, we do live music and we have oyster roasts. And one of the things that's really important to us too is giving back to the community. It's a big part of what we do. So we do fundraisers like almost once a month. We have a different fundraiser for different it's kind of spread across the board on who we work with. We don't really have like I will say we do have certain ones that over the years we work with annually where we do the same fundraiser for them year after year after year. And then we have a lot of them are just small stuff, like we do fundraisers for local PTAs for their schools and stuff like that, and just kind of give back in that way. I'm a big believer that we wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for the support of our community. And so we've got to give back in some way. But yeah, it's fun. It's a really great environment. It's a really fun environment. We try to produce a an environment where our staff is super happy and loves what they do and enjoys what they do. And I think it's reflective of that. I think when you come in, you feel that vibe, you feel that energy here. So I hope that gives a good description since you can't really see it, since we're just talking.
Well, we'll put, send people to the website. And I mean, I can attest personally that everything you said, adds up. And like freaking burger. I mean, I think it was fantastic. I can't remember what I had. I know I had a really good big burger and it was awesome. So,
yeah, burgers are awesome.
Well, in fact, before I forget, so to tell everybody the website.
Yeah, it's super simple. It's bohemianbowl.com. So it's BOHEMIAN Bohemian Bowl. Not a lot of times when we say Bohemian Bowl, they think like the bowl like you would eat out of, but bowl like horns bowl. And when you see our logo, you obviously get that right away with our logo. It's a Pilsner glass with bull horns on the side of it. So really unique, fun logo, and that's part of our branding has been one of the things that has attracted us to people.
So are there other beer garden type concepts that are franchised? I mean, you see them, around some now, but are there other ones that are franchising as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some other brands out there that are franchising. I can't think of, there's nobody in our area, particularly. World of Beers is probably going to be the most famous one that most people have heard of before.
Yeah.
Their focus is really craft beer oriented. I mean, they're doing hundreds of different types of craft beer, and that's really what they hang their hat on, is craft beer. We're a little bit more diversified than that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have a fantastic craft beer program. But that's not all that we do here. I think a big difference is in our food program. We sell almost 70% of our sales come in food. And so even though we have a really great bar program, most people come here, they get a meal, and then they have like a beer or a cocktail with their meal. So they're not coming here just to drink. I mean, we do get that on occasion, but it's pretty rare. And so in a place like World of Beers, I think their focus is a lot more on the craft beer program. And I think you see that in most of from what I've seen, from what the research I've seen. I'm sure there's some people out there that are doing what we're doing. We're not, it's hard to find anybody in the restaurant world anymore that's like not, that's 100% completely unique. Like you've never seen anything like that before.
Oh, no,
we're all kind of doing things based on what we grew up doing and what we learned. And I think that's one of the things that's most amazing about food, is it's nostalgic, right? In a lot of ways, is that you think of your childhood, and you're like, we started doing a smash burger recently, and people are like, I mean, it's become instantly one of our number one selling burgers, because people are like, oh my God, it's the simplest thing, right? It's two little patties smashed on a flat top grill with American cheese and pickles, and some sauce on it. And people go nuts over it because they just love the fact that it reminds them of, that Big Mac that they had when they were a kid. And, but, in our case, we're grinding, brisket and chuck and hand pattying it, and, making our own sauce and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a upgraded Big Mac. Yeah, it's good. It's fun though, but that's the beauty of the restaurant business, is that you gather together with people and you eat together and you have good times, and it's another world.
Well, yeah, I think, I'm super fired up for y'all, Chad, and man, just the way you approach it is such a wise, long-term perspective, and I've got to imagine that's going to be a huge part of why this thing's super successful. Let me ask you this, actually. One thing that you have to, I'm assuming you've been dealing with, or the franchisees may be dealing with this. It seems like everybody I talk to is dealing with, labor, getting people. I mean, how has that been for y'all, and how does that factor into, conversations y'all are having with people? Because it just seems like it's just harder and harder to find people to work now. And then of course, everybody's trying to figure out, okay, well, if I've got people like, what do I do? How do I keep them?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I do. I agree with you. And I think industry wide, there is a lot of changes that need to be made. I think restaurateurs need to open up their eyes a little bit and realize that we need to provide better environments. We need to provide better benefits for people. We need to do things differently than we were doing before in order to make it, as people say, an income that they can live off of, right? Paying people $12 an hour just doesn't exist anymore. And for rightfully so, in my eyes. I mean, I really think that we should be paying people more. That's easy to say when you're busy and you're doing really well. I can imagine the struggles of people around the country that have been forced to be closed down by their governments or just don't do that volume that we do, and it's mom and pop, and they're in there running it daily, day in and day out. And so, we build restaurants to do multi-million-dollars in sales. That's the goal anyways, right? I mean, we don't know obviously until they're open and we're getting them running and everything like that, but that's the goal, is that they do high volume. And so, we pay our cooks better than we'd like to think that most people do. We're really competitive with our pay, because I say cooks because I think that's where most people are talking about when they have labor shortages. I can't, at least in our environment here in Charleston, like for servers and bartenders and such, I get applications daily almost of those types of positions. But cooks are harder to come by. And so what do you do differently? Well, you provide an environment where there's zero tolerance for negativity, right? Like, we don't have management team that ever yells or cusses or does anything like. It's a super positive, environment where we just don't have any tolerance for anything like that here. And what that does is that it just provides a place where people feel comfortable when they come to work. You're not going to come in and get screamed and yelled at and get the pot thrown at you by your chef because he's mad because he didn't cut the onion the right way. And that still exists. I mean, it really does. And it's unfortunate, but that's just not, there's zero tolerance for that here. And when we've had that, unfortunately we've had to let people go because of that. And then we have, so there's pay, there's environment, culture, which, goes hand in hand with each other. We do a lot of really great benefits here. So we have a 401k program where we match our employees' pay for up to 4% of their income. So, last year alone, I think I gave back like $40,000 to my employees in 401k to help them save for retirement. We have health insurance here, which, a lot of people don't provide anymore, but to me, all these things are things that mean that I'm going to make less money, but it also means that I'm providing real jobs for people, not just, I guess you could say it's not a job. It's now their income. It's their livelihood. It's not just, show up to work. I can't tell you how many cooks we've had that are so accustomed to working two jobs because that's what they had to do. And I've sat down and been like, well, what do we need to do to get you out of that? Is it pay? Is it you just like working a lot? Like, what is it? And 9 times out of 10, it's pay. They need to make more money in order to not do that. And so we try to figure out how we can make that work. And we've seen, we've taken a hit labor cost wise doing that. But it makes sense to me. It makes more sense. I mean, in some of that you have to pass along to the customers. I mean, that's the reality of it too, is that we're still in a for-profit business. I mean, this isn't a nonprofit business. If we're very honest and real about it, I love my nonprofits. That's why we give back to them all the time, because I know the struggles they go through. But we are a for-profit business. So some of that is passed along to the customers and pricing. We don't do things, like we compost in house, for example. So like we buy really expensive to-go-ware. All of our to-go-ware is all compostable, from silverware to boxes to cups to everything we do. So we compost here in house, and that comes with a price tag as well. So all that stuff adds up, but I go back to, let's work on sales, let's grow sales and make that our main priority of like getting people in the door and giving them a really great experience. Then hopefully that'll all fall to the bottom line at some point in time.
Well, I would imagine too that when you take care of your people really well and you provide those types of benefits, it's got to reduce turnover.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
turnover's super expensive. It's expensive to hire and train people. It's expensive to lose
100%.
people. So that all, again, you're looking at this sort of long-term, big picture, not how much can I make myself, this month or this year, but can we build this into something that long-term is, a success story? And
yeah,
that's,
and I mean, we're somewhat seasonal. We have a
yeah,
slower January and February. Where our busiest months are April through September, but we don't lay people off. We just kind of suck it up over the off season and try to still get everybody their hours. And we focus on maintenance and cleanliness and all that kind of stuff and training during the off season. Let's get every detail in the place, every corner dusted and every paint nick repainted and all that kind of stuff in the off season. And then, and just try to get people their hours as best as we can. And yeah, I mean, it's, I know everybody says it, but we really do try to make it feel like a family here where people really care about each other. And we do lose people, but not 9 times out of 10, like almost 100% of the time, I really can only think of a handful of people that we've ever lost to another restaurant. They usually go on another career path. They're like, oh, I graduated college and now I'm going to go use something with my degree. And they worked here through, I mean, we had a kid that just left that started with us when he was like, I think Tim was 16 or 17 when he started with us, and he just graduated college, and he's still working like one. He left and he came back and he was like, I still want to do like 1 or 2 days a week. Can I do that? And he works in our kitchen, right? I mean, he's worked here for 8 years in our kitchen, and he does a fantastic job for us, and he's working 1 or 2 days a week still, just picking up some shifts and stuff, and so. I think we do lose some people sometimes to restaurants every once in a while, but it's really, really rare. And it's usually that feeling of the grass is greener on the other side kind of situation. Or, we lost somebody recently that they just really wanted to learn how to do sushi. So they went work for a sushi restaurant. It was like, no, we were super happy for her and we thought it was great, and, go for it and do your thing. So she worked here for a few years for us and did a great job and everything like that. And obviously it was a hard decision for her to make, but it was something she was really excited about learning and doing. And sometimes in the world of a kitchen, when you get people that are passionate about food, that's just the reality of it. They just want to learn stuff, and they want to go do different things. So that's, you have to, I think, as a business owner, kind of own that and understand that too. And especially in the front of the house too, we see that with servers who are, this is a stepping stone. They're in college, they're in high school, whatever it is, and they have this job, to make a little bit of money while they're doing those other things too.
Yeah. Well, gosh, man, I'm so excited for you. I'm so glad we got to catch up.
Absolutely.
I know you've got another meeting in about 20-25 minutes, so I'm gonna let you roll. But thank you, man. Just thanks for the years of support and encouragement, and thanks for taking the time to do this, and congrats. Absolutely. I can't wait to, maybe we'll do this again in 6 months or something once Greenville's open, and keep this conversation going. I'm highly fascinated and just want to, stay dialed into what's happening. We're in Greenville, I don't know, I mean, once or twice a year, maybe something like that. So I'll definitely be partaking. That's a little bit easier for me to get to than down in the neck of the woods.
We also, in our franchise agreement that we have certain things that they're required to use, and one of them is Schedule Fly. So
we'll take it.
So you have some new customers coming your way. We feel like it's a system that that makes sense and that it's easy to manage and works really well. Hopefully someday you guys will integrate with our point of sale system as well. I know it's something y'all have been working on for a long time, but it doesn't really matter to us. They offer a scheduling program and we turned it down. So you got some new customers coming your way through us at some point in time as well.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you very much. Chad, good to see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you soon.
Later. See ya.